I'm in probably one of the coolest, most beautiful neighborhoods around, Laguna Beach, hanging out at Electric Cyclery, Kevin's shop. He has some really neat bikes. This is the Blix Stockholm. It's actually a 2015 model. So they do have a 2016. I'll try to point out some of the differences, and that means the price has been a little bit reduced. The MSRP on this was originally $23.90. You're paying a little bit more, I think, because it's a kind of a stylish bike, but it has a decent system, larger than average battery pack, pretty good gear cluster, Shimano Dior group set right there, 1132 teeth. A nice kind of a chain guide, metallic, helps to keep things on track, but also protects those teeth in case you hit a curb or something. They're using it's a bit of a unique, almost like silverfish design with the battery that slides up, as you can see here, and then down here there's kind of a controller and I'm sure a bundle of wires in there. I love that they've integrated lights on this thing. Okay, so the battery pack, I mentioned it was a bit of an upgrade. This is 36 volt, 13.5 amp hours. So I'd call average like 36 volt, 10 amp hours. It's powering a kind of average hub motor. This is by 8Fun. It's a 350 watt internally geared hub design, a little bit wider than I'm used to seeing. And I'm not sure if maybe that's because it's a narrower wheel. These are 700C by 35, so you can see it's not as fat. It's not like a cruiser tire, but that's going to make it more efficient. It might not be as comfortable though, so it's kind of a trade-off. If you live on a beautifully paved street like this, it's going to coast just fine and be really quiet and just more efficient, right? So I can't really comment too much more on the hub, but it is a little bit a larger diameter than I'm used to for a 350 watt. It's definitely zippy, getting the job done. It's fairly quiet. I noticed that the spokes seem to be upgraded too, so these look like 12 gauge spokes and maybe 13 gauge in the front. So that's definitely a step up from kind of like 14 gauge is what you see on normal bicycles. And I suppose that helps to accommodate the rear rack. This has a 25 kilogram max weight limit. That's 55 pounds. So you could definitely use this for commuting, hook on some panniers on the side or a little trunk bag if you wanted to. Back to the integration. I love that the lights are integrated. They're pretty high quality lights. These are by Spanninga, Linneo in the back. It's got a reflective element built right in. And then we've got the Kendo up front, also with a reflector, along with these SKS fenders. Plastic, pretty strong support arms here, so they weren't rattling around a whole lot during my ride through the neighborhood. And there's even like a connection point with the rack. So this is definitely a step up from something that you'd probably find and do yourself afterwards. You can see the wire coming out from this controller box and then running up inside the fender. And there's even sort of an extra tubing channel that I think would protect the wire versus just having them exposed, which they are right there. So if you are using a saddlebag, just be careful not to bump those wires too much, because you could break them. I like that there's a spring latch right there just for some simple lightweight accessories that you need to bring along. And then they've gone with Welgo pedals. These aren't my favorite. They're kind of cage style. They are a little bit lighter and they've got good grip, but maybe not quite as wide and substantial. And when you're on an electric bike and you're dealing with pedal assist and throttle mode, it's occasionally you slip off and scrape your shins up. So I like, good solid platform pedals personally. I don't know too many people that do clip-in, but I suppose that's an option on something like this. It's a little bit more of a city bike with that forward feel, efficient like we were talking about. Love the wire wrap up front. This is a style that all the Blix bikes use, and you can see that these are internally routed so they stay out of the way. And then look, bottle cage bosses. Love that they included those. So you got your hydration on the go, easy to access there if you didn't want to, load the bike up with bags and stuff. So that's great. Little bit of a rise on the handlebar, but pretty flat, and there's definitely a longer stem. So this is a more forward bike, right? Like you're going to lean forward a little bit more, and there's no suspension fork. So this is just a standard aluminum alloy rigid fork, and so that comes back to being efficient, but not necessarily super comfortable if you live on a street with lots of potholes and stuff. The grips are ergonomic stitched, faux leather. They match the Velo saddle really nicely. That's part of the aesthetic we were talking about with these maybe like brass buttons. And then check this out. It's a little lever, it springs forward. So this saddle is probably the most comfortable piece of the bike because it does have those springs, and it does absorb some of the bumps and stuff. I really appreciate that. What they were going for with this flip up design is, now you can access your battery and just slide it up, right? Well, no, you kind of can't, because see, there's this quick release here, and when you pull this, get ready, see, it slid down and like actually squished my finger earlier. It really hurt. So if you have this bike, just be careful. 27.2 millimeters on this seat post, fairly standard, kind of skinny. If you wanted to replace this with like a thud buster or a body float or something, you totally could. Just try not to pinch your fingers. And again, this is something I think they're trying to address a little bit with future designs, but that collar blocks the battery. And this battery, you know, you have to leave the keys in when you're riding it. And then you have to take that same key to unlock it. But see, if I just slide this up with the key in, I'm gonna hit, potentially bend or even break that key off. So you just wanna take extra care. 8.7 pounds on that battery pack. So this is not a super lightweight bike, even though it looks kind of nimble and elegant. The whole bike weighs like 55 pounds, and that's kind of a lot. So the weight is kept sort of at the center and fairly low with that battery pack and the motor. But, you know, yeah, it's just not super light, and maybe it's the extra cells. Also, the frame is a little bit larger. This is 20.5 length on that seat tube, and I've got the reach and some of the standover height specs and stuff back at the website on the full review, but just worth calling out. It seems like, I think this only comes in one size with the high step, so it's going to be more rigid, more traditional, and I think it only comes in this white with it's like a burgundy and black band, which I like. I totally like that. It ties into the black battery with the rack, with the fenders. Just some trade-offs here to be made in terms of weight, possibly because it's a larger frame. So I'm going to try to get that seat dialed into position again. There we go, locked down. Love that they've included a kickstand, and that seems to work pretty well, adjustable length, and that the front is quick release. So the brakes on this are pretty solid. We've got hydraulic Tektro Auriga E-Comp, so e-bike specific, 180 millimeter rotor up front with that quick release, 160 millimeter right there in the back. And then the levers, also, of course, hydraulic, but they are e-bike specific because they have this extra wire coming out of both of them. That's a motor inhibitor. So if you need to stop, you can just squeeze those brakes and the motor isn't going to respond to pedal assist. It isn't going to respond to throttle. And that's a good thing, because I was a little bit confused about how pedal assist works on this bike. Let's go ahead and turn it on. So the keys are in, they're on. They can jingle around a little bit, and if you have a big keychain, they could potentially get snagged and just chip the frame. So that's not my favorite. The new 2016 version of this, they've improved that, so you don't have to leave the keys in or anything. You basically just press the little power button and then come up to the front. And then we press the power button here. This is the other area where they've really improved. Instead of an LED, like micro display, which is not removable or anything, but is fairly slim and unobtrusive, they've got an LCD, so more like a phone display or something with numbers and a lot of readouts. So this one just has dots. So we've got 3 out of 4 battery dots, so we're 75% full about. And then we've got low, medium, and high on pedal assist, as well as lights. So if I click the light, it turns blue, and we've got that visibility for safety, which is awesome. Then we come back here. If we want to get into pedal assist, you hold mode and it goes through low, medium, high. But the interesting thing is, like, it's already in pedal assist. So if I just hop on right now, those 12 magnets are going to be passing by a sensor and pedal assist is going to activate. I'm not even sure what level of pedal assist, but it definitely goes. And at the same time, the throttle also goes, right? So it's like everything is active from the get-go. And that's where that motor inhibitor comes in handy, because sometimes you go, whoa, I didn't realize the bike was on. You start pedaling, you get that zip. When you pull the brakes, like, it's going to go ahead and kill the motor. So I think that's key. But it is nice that I guess they give you the choice of what level. And then the trigger throttle, you'll notice it's over here on the left, and I think they did that because they went with trigger shifters here on the right, and there just wasn't a whole lot of extra room. They probably didn't want to compromise this nice grip with like a half twist shift, and maybe that was cheaper. They were able to get more generic grips that way. But, you know, if they'd had the trigger throttle over here, it could have gotten in the way of the brake lever and the shifters and stuff. So they put it on the left, which is fine. But you do push it forward versus down. So it's a little bit different. They basically had to flip it. And when you do that, it goes the other direction. So there's probably more information than you needed about trigger throttles. Awesome. I think that's a pretty good overview. One thing this bike does not have is reflective sidewalls on the tires, but because it's white, you get a pretty good visual footprint going. It does have K-shield, so that's the puncture protection. And now that this is sort of like out of season, I'm reviewing this in 2016 just for fun, you know, to kind of complete the range of Blix bikes, and I probably review the 2016 at some point. You can get a better deal on it. So you could find this like at Kevin's shop. He'll cut you a deal. And I think it's still a pretty good bike. Like the motor works, you've got throttle mode, you've got pedal assist. You know, you don't know how fast you're going or how far you've been, but you can always add a cycle computer and put the magnet up on the front. It's totally doable. So I think this is a pretty solid platform to build off of. And yeah, I think from there, let's just hop on and power around. There are a lot of hills in this neighborhood because we're right by the ocean. I'm gonna go try to find one, but I might start off just with throttle mode right here. So I'm just gonna juice it. There we go. Pretty impressive. Like, we are climbing right now. It's not super steep, but it's not really loud. Like some of these hub motors kind of go ring, ring, and they zing a little bit more than this one. So now we're definitely on a bit of an incline right here. And if I start from 0, maybe even cross the street over there. Okay, so here we go. This is definitely a hill. Quiet, but it's definitely struggling, and we're making it, but I don't weigh a whole lot. I'm only like 135 pounds, so I guess it's nice to know that you can rely on that throttle as a last resort. And of course, if you want to maximize range, I'm going to use pedal assist, and it's got the cadence sensor. You don't really have to push very hard, just move your feet and it's going to activate. Now I'm going to go in pedal assist, and you can see how responsive it is from when I start pedaling to when the motor kicks in. And when I stop pedaling, how quickly it cuts out. And I'm going to go in high mode just so it's more pronounced. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Nice to see this thing in person, test it out, and get to ride around these neighborhoods with these awesome barking dogs and loud cars. Hope you've enjoyed the review. For the full write-up on this, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com, again with those specs and stuff on reach and everything. Maybe you've got this bike from 2015, you want to sound off about what worked, what didn't work, what you had to fix. That's always really helpful. And I guess as always, ride safe.